Before you do anything rash, like pressing another button, may I make an alternative suggestion? The trouble with computers, of course, is that they're very sophisticated idiots. Even the sonic screwdriver won't get me out of this one. It's the end. But the moment has been prepared for.
Hello and welcome to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast number 12. In this week's show, I'm reviewing the Big Finish box set Unit Dominion. I did post on the Facebook page asking for people's views on this story, but as I've not received anything from any of those posts, I'm assuming none of you out there have listened to it yet. So be warned, there will be spoilers in this review. Sadly, I was unable to avoid spoilers about this story myself, so knew from the outset who Alex McQueen's character really was, but more of that later on. For me, Unit Dominion was somewhat confusing to start with. Klein as Unit's scientific advisor? Where did that come from? Oh, I think there were a couple of lines thrown in somewhere in the story, but not for me a satisfactory explanation of Klein's journey from time-travelling villain to all-round and incredibly knowledgeable good egg. McCoy's performance was typically doctorish, and as close to the TV series as I can remember Big Finish allowing him to be. However, that was as frustrating as it was enjoyable, simply because I've become used to his Big Finish persona. All the other leads were as good as they could have been, including Julian Dutton's Colonel Lafayette. Sadly, however, with all due respect to the actors playing the unit personnel, this story lacked the Brigadier, Captain Yates and Sergeant Benton. This whole storyline was ripe for these familiar characters to take part in, and they would have fitted in like a glove. I mentioned previously Alex McQueen's role in the story, and sadly, as I said before, I was unable to avoid hearing who he was really playing. There had been some considerable build-up as to who this next Doctor really was, and I for one was wondering how Big Finish had gained permission from the BBC to use a future Doctor. However, when McQueen was revealed to be playing the Master, that coloured my whole listening experience. All the way through I was shouting at my iPad, "It's the Master! Can't you see that?" To be honest, this left me even more confused than the opening episodes of the story itself. When did he regenerate from Anthony Ainley? To the best of my knowledge, there is no explanation of that in Unit Dominion. When does he then go from being this John Sims-style Master to being captured by the Daleks at the start of the 8th Doctor's only television story? How does this Master fit into the canon? Personally, I hope that this version of the Master will not become a staple of the Big Finish audios. Geoffrey Beevers is doing a fantastic job of playing a Master familiar to that era of the show, and long may that continue. Overall, while Unit Dominion was an enjoyable listen, I'm in no hurry to go back and listen again. Would I recommend it? Yes, I probably would, but with a note of caution. You'll be crying out for the unit regulars and Geoffrey Beevers to be playing the relevant parts by the end of it. Well, yes, it's a short one this week, but I should mention that this may well be the way of things from now on, as I'm also hosting a second podcast every week now for my place of work here on the south coast of England. As I'm sure you'll be aware, scripting, recording and editing these things takes time, and while it's a labour of love, I do have a life outside of podcasting. Thanks once again for listening, and please do share the podcast on your pages. If any of you have any feedback about the podcast or Unit Dominion, do leave it on here on the post or inbox me at Theta Sigma's Doctor Who page on Facebook. So until next time...
Well, goodbye, my boy. You did quite well. Quite well. It's reassuring to know that my future is in safe hands.
Thank you for listening to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all copyright and property of the BBC, and no infringement is intended.